Alright, this is another exclusive video for my Patreon supporters. I was doing a live stream and said I was going to look at some of my Sega Genesis games, so we're going to do that now. I'm not going to look at every Sega Genesis game I have because that would take probably hours. We're just going to talk about some in my collection. So let's see, I'm just going to randomly pick some out. Here, popping out, I see Castlevania Bloodlines. I did a video on this at one point. You guys know I'm a big Castlevania fan. This game's pretty hard. If I were to pick the hardest Castlevania game, I would say probably Dracula's Curse. This game's a little bit under that, but it's still pretty tough. If you're new to the Castlevania franchise, I'd say, you know, maybe try the Super Nintendo game Castlevania 4. There's a little bit of challenge to it, but I'd probably go for that if you're starting out. But this game is awesome. It's got awesome backgrounds, and there's one part that I remember that has sort of a reflection in the water. It's just basically it's an awesome looking game. So yeah, Castlevania Bloodlines, really quality title for the Sega Genesis. Let's just go through some of the others here. Sunset Riders. I played this game in the arcade, Super Nintendo, and then there's the Sega Genesis version. This version, I would say, is the easiest version of the game because it has a few things about the controls that make it a bit easier. You can hold down the button and you can stop and fire, which you can't do on the Super Nintendo version, and it makes the game a little bit easier. Also, the other main thing that makes it easier is you get a lot of extra lives in the bonus stages. There's one where a guy is just literally throwing out extra lives out of the back of a carriage. So the same thing happens in the Super Nintendo version, except there's guys shooting at you and you're jumping over logs and stuff. So it's quite a bit harder on Super Nintendo. But this is a good game. It's worth playing. If you want to start out with like Sunset Riders on a console, I'd say play this. Or you can just pop quarters into an arcade machine and just go. Suck all your quarters dry. Contra Hardcore. So this is also a game that I played and did a video on. I love the Contra franchise as well. Obviously, I've done a lot of Contra stuff. The hardest Contra game that I've played is Contra 3: The Alien Wars on Super Nintendo. This one's also really difficult, but I'd say just slightly under that. But what's cool about this game is that you can play this with multiple characters and go down multiple paths and stuff. So this probably has more replayability to it. Awesome graphics. I want to go through this again at some point with the other characters because I think I did the little robot character. Don't remember his name. Maybe it might say it on the back or something, but yeah, I don't know. Anyhow, I want to go. I think there's a werewolf guy, and I want to try that and the regular human character. Really cool game. Let's see. Okay, I want to talk about these. So these are part of a trilogy. I don't have the other game, but the first in it is Ernest Evans, and you can see right on the front, it's basically Indiana Jones, and this game is supposed to be really bad. I actually haven't played it, but the second in the series is El Viento, and this is a game that nobody talks about. We have an obscure gem here. This is a really awesome game. It's very hard, but it's sort of a side-scrolling, I don't necessarily want to say hack and slash, but sort of just like a side-scroller game. And basically, it's awesome, and it's worth playing, but it is a little challenging. And I did a live stream on it, so you supporters have probably already seen it. That's funny to think, you know, this isn't just a video that's going out to everybody, it's just for you guys. So I'm sure a lot of you have already seen me playing some of this stuff and talking about this. So by the way, if you know, you guys that are supporting me, I appreciate this so much, and I hope you're enjoying these little exclusive bonus features. I just did a live stream that you guys might have saw of Lightning Force. This is an awesome Sega Genesis game. I did not play this until literally today, same day that I'm filming this, and if you guys like shooters, this is like top quality. I didn't know how good this was. This is an awesome game. That's all I'm going to say about it. Awesome shooter. If you like shooters, get it. And oh, and one thing I'll say is there's part of it where the background graphics have like clouds and stuff, and it honestly looks like a Bob Ross painting. It's a great game. Get it if you like Sega Genesis. Now, I want to talk about Comic Zone. This is a game I want to get back to. We did this for James and Mike Mondays. We didn't know what the hell we were doing, which isn't the point of James and Mike Mondays. The point of it is just James and I just screwing around. But I do want to practice this at some point because since we didn't really know what we were doing, I'd like to learn this game and see what it's actually really about and do a live stream of it at some point. but I have to like look into it. I might have to practice it a little bit first. So hopefully at some point I'll do that. This is a game that you guys are going to find interesting, and I don't think I've talked about it before. This is Sega Club Wacky Worlds, and the font right here kind of looks like Burger King's Kids Club kind of thing. But this is essentially the Sega Genesis equivalent to Mario Paint. Mario was the icon image on the Mario Paint. Here you have Sonic the Hedgehog, so they're very much trying to copy that, especially the fact that this game, if I can get it out, this game comes with a mouse. So yeah, it's Sega's answer to Mario Paint. I tried it once. It wasn't very good, and I know what you're gonna say. Well, Mario Paint wasn't that good. Mario Paint was actually pretty awesome for what it was. Sure, the drawing tool wasn't that great, but that was you know, early on, and you know, I don't even know if Photoshop was out at that point. I think it was just Microsoft Paint and stuff. Like, that's how early it was. So yeah, because you know what, this game came out in 1994. So that's about the time, a little bit after, like, you know, Windows 3.1 and stuff like that. It's like, you know, that's what people were probably using at that point. Anyway, very early on, but you'd want to play Mario Paint. This is one area where definitely the Super Nintendo was better. But let's talk about a really good Sega Genesis game. How about Toe Jam and Earl? This is one of my absolute favorites. Very unique gameplay. A lot of times I talk about, you know, the most important thing to me is gameplay over graphics. I like the Atari 2600. There's basically no graphics there. It's all about gameplay. This, it has cool, funny, and funky graphics. Speaking of the word funky, the sequel to this is called Panic and Funkatron. I don't like that game, but this is awesome. We did a James and Mike Monday for it. I don't know if you guys saw that, but basically you're just two little weirdo characters going around, walking from sort of a level to level to level, going up elevators and trying not to fall off the edge. It's a very interesting concept, and it's fun to play if you're playing with a friend. I would even play this on my own, so maybe I'll stream it sometime. Big fan of that game. There's nothing really like this game, and it's not at all like the sequel. I want to talk about another game that I love, Columns. This was a game that I used to play with my mom, believe it or not, and this is essentially an old-ish version of Bejeweled or something like that. It's kind of similar to, I mean, you guys watching probably already know what this is, but it's basically, if you don't, it's like Tetris or Dr. Mario, something like that. But the controls are great. It's still a fun game. If you haven't played Columns, this is one of my favorites still. So let's talk about this. This is Ghouls and Ghosts, and I plan to do a live stream of this probably really soon. And I also want to do Super Ghouls and Ghosts, but I want to talk a little bit briefly about the sort of story behind this. These games all originally came out in the arcade, but for the consoles, the first one was Ghosts and Goblins for NES, which I did a playthrough of that. I beat it. One of the hardest games I've ever played. You have to go through it twice, which is grueling, to get like the good ending. Anyhow, this is the first in the series. Then the second in the series is this one, which I'm talking about, Ghouls and Ghosts. What's weird about it is that they changed the name. Ghosts and Goblins, the sequel is Ghouls and Ghosts. So why is it not Ghosts and Goblins 2, right? Weird. But anyhow, so this is the second in the series, and then the third in the series was on Super Nintendo now, and I just sounded like Kirk Cameron. Super Nintendo. Super Ghouls and Ghosts. So now they're keeping the Ghouls and Ghosts thing going. They just added the word super. So really, the first game in the series should have been called Ghouls and Ghosts. This should be called Ghouls and Ghosts 2, and this should be called Ghouls and Ghosts 3. I don't know what they did, but what's also weird about it is you go from NES to Genesis to Super Nintendo. What the hell is that all about? Anyhow, what else do we got here? I want to tell you guys a little bit about Desert Strike. I don't really like army games. I'm not into them at all. I don't like Call of Duty. I don't like any of that stuff. It doesn't interest me whatsoever. However, there's always an exception, right? This is a game where you're going around in a helicopter. You're picking up guys that you need to rescue. you're like shooting missiles and you're shooting like missiles and bullets, and you're blowing up buildings, and it's just, even though that's not particularly my theme that I like, the gameplay is so good it like overrides that. Great gameplay, excellent game. Let's now talk about what else do I have here? I'm gonna have to show these games. I don't know a lot about them. I have played them a few times. People request these all the time. I do own them. These are the real cartridges and boxes, by the way. I know Gunstar Heroes is hard to get like an authentic copy of. You'll see fakes going all over the place for Gunstar Heroes, but this is a legit copy of it. I've played these like once or twice. I'm not good at them. I didn't own this growing up. I need to practice these a little bit, but I do plan on streaming these at some point. So eventually I'll get to that. Some of the other great games on Sega Genesis are these. If you have a Sega Genesis, you have to own Aladdin. The Genesis version, a lot of people consider to be better because it's a little bit more violent, I guess, which, you know, people don't like when Nintendo make things more kiddie a lot of times. Genesis was the adult console. Yeah. And Streets of Rage 2 and 3. You gotta have Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage is like the ultimate Sega Genesis game. When the first thing you think of when you think of Sega Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Streets of Rage, it's Sega Genesis. What else do we got? We got McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure. So the game that came before this, McKids, kind of a McDonald's game. There is Ronald McDonald in it and those characters, but they kind of only come during the cutscenes and at the ends of levels and stuff. This is a game where you actually get to play as Ronald McDonald. It's much more of a McDonald's game than really any other McDonald's game. There is a game called Donald Land, but it didn't come out in the States, I don't believe, and it's really bizarre from what I know. This game here is really, if you want to play a McDonald's game, here you go. I gotta talk a little bit about Flicky, because you guys probably know I like Flicky. This is a game, you're a bird, there's little chickens, chickadees, whatever, you're saving them, there's like 10 on a level. It's very arcade style. You go around a stage, there's cats coming after the bird. It's as simple of a concept as possible, you know, but the gameplay is great. The controls are great. It's a really fun game. It's a really hard game. It's arcade style, and the funny thing about the game is if you do, I think it's like 10 or 20 rounds in a certain amount of time, you can actually get like a naked girl in a bikini to show up. I've never been able to do it, but I really want to try. I want to do it someday. There was one day I did a stream, if you didn't see it, where I was playing for hours and hours and hours, and I was getting really pissed off, as you know I do once in a while. Probably a little bit of couch punching going on there, but awesome game, Flicky. I would say get that if you like arcade style games and you love the Sega Genesis. What else can I tell you guys about? I'm just looking through my games real quick. Here's Dark Castle. This was an AVGN episode. This game sucks. Don't buy that one. That's all I'll say. Really annoying sound effects. A lot of people want me to play more Wonder Boy because I did a video called, it was like Wonder Boy and the Dragon's Trap, I think it was called, for PC, and I actually really liked that game. So a lot of people recommended this one, Wonder Boy in Monster World, which is also, I believe it's similar, but a lot of people think it's better, or this is sort of the original version of it or something. I haven't really played it, so don't know, but maybe I'll play it one day on stream. So, and I have done Sega Genesis games on stream before, so I did one today. I actually, you know what's funny? I was going to do TMNT Hyperstone Heist today, but the game froze on me, and then it started making a weird noise. It was going, so I don't know. So you guys know I like Disney games. I wanted to try this goofy, hysterical history tour game. I popped it in before I did a stream. It was a good thing I did, because I played this. I really wanted it to be good. I thought it was terrible. It was just a crappy side scroller with bad gameplay, so I'm probably not going to do this one. A lot of people recommend Goof Troop to me, but that's on Super Nintendo, so probably not going to be doing that one. Here's another crappy game. This is Young Indiana Jones. I'd been thinking for a while maybe this should be an AVGN episode because this game fucking sucks. We'll save that maybe someday for AVGN, but basically this is an AVGN worthy game. I had just mentioned that that art game with the mouse, the wacky, what the hell was it called? The Wacky Worlds. This one, the Mario Paint kind of thing. These are two other like art games for the Sega Genesis. This is Art Alive, and this one is Fun and Games. Look at the goofy kind of characters on that. I'm gonna have to try these games out someday. Actually, this one has Sonic the Hedgehog on it too. These look super bizarre, and they're both weird art games. They're probably awful, I would imagine, but it might be funny for a live stream someday. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about all the games, but actually, oh wait, you know what? I just thought of, I do want to mention this one. So, The Adventures of Batman and Robin. I have to say, first of all, this game was on Super Nintendo as well, but it was different. This is a totally different version than The Adventures of Batman and Robin game. The other one, I don't even know how to explain the other one, but basically the other one is, I think, better. This one is probably one of the hardest video games ever made. It's like, well, maybe I won't go that far, but it's extremely hard. This is probably the hardest game on the Sega Genesis. I've tried to play it. Maybe someday I'll beat it. I don't know. Or maybe someday I'll make it past the second stage. I mean, this is balls to the wall difficult. So hopefully someday I can get good at that game. But it's an awesome cover, and the graphics in it are awesome. Like, it's a cool game, but it's just unbelievably mercilessly hard. Mercilessly? Is that even a word? So the one other thing I want to mention is this is a cardboard case, and one of the cool things about Sega Genesis games was that they came in a plastic case, so they were always protected, because, you know, the NES games and the Super Nintendo games had the cardboard box, and a lot of times we would just chuck those out because they were cardboard, right? But Genesis plastic cases sort of stood the test of time because people, you know, weren't really going to throw those out as much because they were more durable. They weren't just like this crappy cardboard like the Nintendo Labo that people are just going to throw out. Anyway, what I think is cool is that sometimes, once in a while, you'll find a Sega Genesis game in a cardboard case, which is a little more rare, and I like those. Speaking of ones in cardboard cases, here we have another one. This is Desert Demolition with the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Now, I love Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. I love the old Disney cartoons. I love the Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers cartoons, all that stuff, Tom and Jerry, Fleischer cartoons, all those old cartoons. One of my favorites as a kid was Roadrunner and Coyote because you didn't have to understand words to get these cartoons. You could be just a little kid and totally understand what's going on. You could speak another language and know what's going on. Anyway, in the arcade, there was a Roadrunner game. It wasn't very good. Then they ported it to the NES, and it was a shitty port. Funny, but just garbage. Then they released, I believe they released a version on the Sega Master System, which I haven't really played, and I want to take a look at that if I'm not mistaken. Then there was Roadrunner Death Valley Rally on Super Nintendo. I remember renting that as a kid, and it had some of the best graphics, very colorful, just amazing looking. It looked like a Warner Brothers cartoon from back then. It was like perfect graphics. Really some of the most awesome graphics on the Super Nintendo, I think. But the game sucked. The gameplay was really bad. The controls were slippery. You couldn't really see where you were going. Like, you couldn't see too far ahead of you where you're going because you're the Roadrunner. You're running all over the place, and you kind of needed to see further. Like, there wasn't enough room, or like you might be on a ledge and you have to jump down, and then you don't know where to jump, and then you end up just falling down a hole or dropping all the way back down to the beginning. It's that kind of game. and it wasn't very good, unfortunately, and I wanted it so badly to be good. So when people talk about a good Roadrunner game, this is the one they talk about for Sega Genesis. And again, the graphics are good, the gameplay is better than Death Valley Rally, but honestly, I think this game is just mediocre. There is a funny part in the old Roadrunner cartoons when Wile E. Coyote puts a helmet on his head, which has a wheel on top of it, and his plan is to go from the top of a mountain all the way down to the road by standing on his head on a wire, and then he's going to catch the Roadrunner that way. He stands on his head, he gets on the wire snaps, he falls with the classic, woo, you know, that thing. Anyway, there's a part in this Sega Genesis game that relives that, and I remember playing this and getting to that point, and I could not figure out how to stand on the wire, and it was just like kind of crappy controls. And people say that this game's good, but from me going and playing it, I was like, it's not that great. So basically, there's never really been a great Roadrunner or Coyote game, unless that Sega Master System one is good. So I'll have to try that. That game was not released in the United States, so I just went and grabbed it. This is the Desert Speed Trap. I believe this was only released in Europe, so I haven't played this, but I want to do a stream on this because I think this is kind of a rare game, and maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the good Roadrunner game. Just taking a look at the back of it, it definitely does not look like Desert Demolition, I don't think. And I think it's its own thing. Actually, when did this come out? 93, and this one came out in 95. So yeah, I think they're totally different games. Let's actually crack this open and take a look. Yeah, it's, you know, I don't know. I'm gonna have to do a live stream of it. So maybe this is the answer. Not Sega Genesis, but Master System. I don't really do many Master System games. Maybe I'll have to do an exclusive Master System collection video for you guys, but I am going to be doing a lot of exclusive videos for you guys. Thanks again for supporting me, and I'm going to have more stuff coming, obviously. Also, for you guys waiting for more AVGN commentaries, I'm going to be doing that too, exclusive for you guys. So thank you so much. More content to come. Thanks for watching the streams. See you later.